Hello, my name is Michele Korfin. I am the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Commercial Officer of Gamida Cell. At Gamida Cell, we are pioneering next generation cell therapies for patients with cancer and other serious diseases. What I will start off with is introducing our proprietary nicotinamide or NAM cell expansion platform. We have near-term, mid-term, and long-term potential utilizing this platform. Our near-term potential is with Gamida Cell. We are preparing for a BLA submission in fourth quarter of this year with the potential for Gamida Cell to be the first FDA-approved cell therapy for bone marrow transplantation. I'll walk you through our phase 3 clinical data results and our plans for commercialization. The next area that we'll focus on is GDA201. We are progressing our clinical program in natural killer or NK cells. GDA201 is an innate natural killer cell product that had encouraging phase 1 data from the University of Minnesota that was presented at ASH in 2020. And I'll walk you through that clinical data and talk about our plans to advance into a phase 1/2 program in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in the second half of this year. And then our longer term potential with our most recently announced new therapies that we discussed at our August earnings call. We have announced our new therapies for the natural killer cell platform, GDA301, 401, 501, and 601. These therapies incorporate CRISPR editing, incorporation of CARs in some therapies, and we have some encouraging evidence of increased cytotoxicity in preclinical studies. These will have potential beyond hematologic malignancies and also in the comprehensive Gamida Cell platform and pipeline consists of, first off, Gamida Cell. We completed our phase 3 studies in hematologic malignancies, and I'll talk about that patient population momentarily. Gamida Cell not only has orphan drug designation in the US, we also have FDA breakthrough designation. And we are on our path to file our BLA in the fourth quarter of this year. We also do have an ongoing phase 2 study in severe aplastic anemia, another area of great unmet medical need for patients. And for our natural killer cell or NK platform, we are looking to advance cryopreserved therapies. GDA201, I will walk through the clinical data that was presented at ASH, specifically focused on the non-Hodgkin cohort in combination with rituximab. GDA301 is a CISH knockout focused on solid tumors. GDA401, we have not disclosed yet the specific targets for that therapy that will come in the near future. GDA501 also focused on solid tumors. This incorporates a HER2 CAR, and GDA601 is a CD38 knockout with a CD38 CAR, which will target patients with multiple myeloma. The NAM proprietary platform has a few very important aspects to it. First off, the NAM platform provides the ability to enhance the number of allogeneic donor cells, not only enhancing the number of cells, but enhancing the cellular functionality and phenotype. And we've demonstrated the potential to expand any cell type. We'll talk about Gamida Cell, where the starting material is cord blood, but we also have had the ability to expand for our natural killer cell platform. Let me start with Gamida Cell. So Gamida Cell, really our inspiration for Gamida Cell clinical development and launch readiness is Stacy. Stacy is a patient who participated in the first clinical study for Gamida Cell at Duke Medical Center after being diagnosed with AML. Stacy was unfortunately, like many patients, and she was unable to find an appropriate match. So Stacy enrolled in the phase 1 study at Duke. We are so excited to say that we are in close contact with Stacy still, and she remains cancer-free over 10 years since her bone marrow transplant. Stacy and other patients like Stacy drive our clinical development program for Gamida Cell, and also will absolutely be the focus of our launch readiness, with keeping a very patient-centered focus around our launch. Gamida Cell starting material is cord blood unit. One of the benefits of starting with cord blood unit is a less stringent matching criteria. So we start with a cord blood unit. We then utilize our proprietary NAM technology, and we have both the cultured fraction and the non-cultured fraction. The cultured fraction utilizes the NAM expanded stem cells, and they're cultured using our NAM technology. And the non-cultured fraction is the flow-through fraction. This fraction is rich in immune cells, including T cells. Both the cultured fraction and the non-cultured fraction encompass the Gamida Cell infusion. We have a scalable manufacturing process, which I will introduce, and we are excited about having refined designed and mapped out our supply chain for Omidubicel as part of our launch readiness. But before I go into launch readiness, let me share with you our phase 3 study design. So the phase 3 study was a 1-to-1 randomization between Omidubicel and standard cord blood, which we refer to as a comparator. 125 patients were randomized at 33 global sites. Inclusion criteria allowed for patients aged 12 to 65 with high-risk hematologic malignancies. These were patients eligible for an allogeneic bone marrow transplant who did not have access to a matched donor. The demographics and baseline characteristics were well balanced in the two arms, and Omidubicel was deemed to be generally well tolerated. What we have depicted on this slide was the primary endpoint, and that was the intent to treat analysis for median time to neutrophil engraftment. As depicted in this table, you'll see that Omidubicel had a median time to neutrophil engraftment of 12 days, while the comparator was 22 days, statistically significant. We were very excited to achieve that primary endpoint. We recently published the clinical data from our phase 3 study in the journal Blood. We not only achieved the primary endpoint with an unprecedented time to neutrophil engraftment, we also achieved the 3 secondary endpoints: reduced time in the hospital, decreased risk of infection, and decreased time to platelet engraftment. In the Blood publication, we also discussed our exploratory endpoints. Some of these included overall survival, viral infections, and what we did was we demonstrated a trend to improved overall survival. We also demonstrated a reduction in cumulative incidence of viral infections. We are excited to be finalizing our preparation with the intent of filing the BLA in fourth quarter of 2021. Because we are getting ready for the BLA filing in fourth quarter of 21, it's very, very important for us to also be prepared for our launch readiness. What we have done so far with Omidubicel is understand or assess the market, develop our strategy, and then work on our launch execution plans. So as a result of our market assessment and our strategic work, what we have here is our Omidubicel vision. Omidubicel has the potential to be the next generation cell therapy for allogeneic transplant that delivers a universal solution for a cure. What are the supporting reasons to believe that vision? First and foremost, because we do have a less stringent matching criteria with Omidubicel, given that the starting material is cord blood, we have the ability to match over 95% of all patients. This is a big challenge for patients in the US. If you are non-Caucasian, you don't have access to a related donor, it is incredibly difficult to find a match in the public database. With Omidubicel, we do believe we have the ability to match over 95% of all patients. Our clinical trial, over 40% of the patients were ethnically diverse. So this supports the fact that we have that ability to match a diversity of patients. And this diversity within our trial was consistent with what you would see in a traditional US patient population presenting at a transplant center. Because Omidubicel starting material is cord blood, we've removed the concern about donor age and availability. The age of the donor matters. Studies have been presented, including one that Gamida Cell worked on in partnership with CIBMTR, which was presented at the Cord Connect meeting last year. When you look at the age of the donor, the younger the donor, the better the outcome of the patient. So specifically in our analysis, donors less than 30 years of age, the patient had a statistically significant greater survival probability than when the donor was greater than 30 years of age. So the age of the donor is critical. And then the other very compelling reasons to believe center around our clinical data. So to summarize for Omidubicel, we really see 2 key opportunities upon FDA approval and launch: the ability to improve outcomes based on our clinical data in our phase 3 study, and the ability to improve or expand access to patients who currently cannot find an appropriate donor. So we're advancing into our launch readiness. We've hired an outstanding team of commercial leaders in the US with our clear focus on having a positive patient experience, with patients like Stacy always at the center of our launch planning. 4 key tenets of the launch planning. First, we'll be educating the US transplant centers. In the US, there's approximately 200 transplant centers that perform allogeneic stem cell transplants. 70 of those centers conduct approximately 80% of the transplants. So those 70 centers will be our initial focus. Have an outstanding market access team led by Rocio Mangani. Rocio is working diligently with payers to ensure reimbursement, to ensure patient access upon FDA approval. As part of Rocio's organization is a very experienced team called Gamida Cell Assist. The leadership of that team is in place, and they are incredibly experienced in building and leading patient and hospital support services. This group will not only be a traditional patient support service, but they also will start the chain of identity and track the chain of custody for Gamida Cell. And then the final aspect of our very critical launch planning is commercial readiness. We will have dual source for manufacturing for commercialization of Gamida Cell. The primary source will be our Gamida Cell owned facility in Israel. It resides or is in Kiryat in Israel. The construction of this facility was completed in 2020. We hired our initial team, and we are underway now with our BLA requirements. We just hired a very, very experienced leader for our global operations and manufacturing, Vladimir Melnikov. So Vladimir is leading our team not only in Kiryat, but also our global operations and supply chain. And we also do have a partnership with Lonza. This is their facility based in the Netherlands. Lonza is a well-recognized global cell and gene therapy manufacturer, and they will also be a partner with us for Gamida Cell commercialization. So we're very excited about the near-term opportunity for Gamida Cell. Let me now transition to our natural killer cell or NK pipeline. So the benefit of NK cells, we've seen this nicely depicted in the literature. NK cell infusion is a promising immune therapy for cancer for a few reasons. First off, there's no HLA matching that's been required. There's also synergy with antibodies, and we depicted that in our GDA 201 study, which was in combination with rituximab. This has the potential for off-the-shelf therapy and the expansion to obtain clinically meaningful doses as we have been utilizing with our NAM technology. So let's talk first about GDA 201. We conducted a phase 1 study in partnership with the University of Minnesota. There were 2 cohorts, patients with non-Hodgkin lymphoma and those with multiple myeloma. Minnesota presented the data from the non-Hodgkin lymphoma cohort at ASH in 2020, so that's what we will focus on for this presentation. Patients underwent a lymphodepleting regimen and then received GDA 201 in combination with Rituxan for the NHL cohort. The primary endpoint was maximum tolerated dose, secondary endpoints being overall response and toxicity. The results were very encouraging. So the 19 patients with NHL, 13 complete responses, 1 partial response, so an overall response rate of 74% with a CR rate of 68%. And as depicted in this slide, you could see some examples of very encouraging durability of response. Patient 004, 005, 009, you saw the duration of their responses extending beyond 2 years. So we are very encouraged by this data from Minnesota, and hence we are now moving forward with a Gamida-sponsored phase 1/2 multi-centered study. This will utilize a cryopreserved formulation. So we anticipate both the IND being filed and the study starting in the second half of 21. We were excited to announce the next generation of our NK cell programs at our recent earnings call in August. So we announced 4 new therapies on the platform. 301 is intended to increase potency and persistence. This is a cyst knockout focused on both hematologic malignancies and solid tumors. 401, we have not disclosed the target yet, so we will be discussing that in the future. 501 will be HER2 targeted. It incorporates a HER2 CAR, so this will focus on HER2 positive solid tumors. And then finally, 601, this is a CD838 targeted therapy. So it's CD38 knockout with a CD38 CAR, and this would target patients with multiple myeloma. So in summary, at Gamida, we're focused on a few key areas, and we're excited about the progress we're making. Gamida Cell is nearing commercialization and will focus on addressing a major unmet need for patients in need of an allogeneic stem cell transplant. We have the potential to be the first FDA-approved cell therapy for bone marrow transplant with our planned BLA submission in the 4th quarter of this year and launch readiness underway for potential mid-22 launch. GDA 201, encouraging phase 1 data from Minnesota with a 74% overall response rate, 68% CR. So we are underway now with the planning to start our phase 1/2 study in the second half of this year, focused on non-Hodgkin lymphoma. We've built out our NK, our natural killer cell platform, with the announcement of 4 additional therapies, which we are excited to continue to advance from preclinical studies. And we're well positioned to execute our goals, both in terms of our cash position. We have $150 million approximately in cash, which will support our capital needs into the second half of 22. And we have an approximately 150 employees. So at Gamida, we are committed to cures and we are passionate about helping patients with unmet medical needs. So we look forward to staying in touch with our future developments. Thank you.